I'm Jeff St Laurent, and this is the Tuesday Call. Welcome as always, and today we're going to talk about setting up your first live event and some of the components that go into that. And before we get started, I just to get some housekeeping things so you're aware of a few things. The calls are obviously always recorded, and they're posted on my website in my Selling Coaching University. So if you want to check out sellingcoaching.com, that's my website, and then if you go to the university, there's a bunch of the calls there and a lot of educational videos to help you coaches transition to full-time. And that's kind of what I do, is help coaches transition to full-time, and I really like to relate everything back to and focus on the marketing and the selling aspects of it, because it's the business of coaching that's gotten me from full-time for the last 12 plus years. And you could be a great coach, but until you understand the business of coaching and those aspects of entrepreneurship and selling, that's what's going to really help you create the consistency that you need to create for that, being paid as a coach, doing what you love, but to be able to create a lifestyle for yourself and your family and do what you choose to do. So that's where we focus on. You can check that stuff out in the university. If you haven't been to my private Facebook group, you can also go to sellingcoaching.com, and right at the very top there's a banner that says join my private Facebook group. If you click that, you'll go right over to the group and you can read the description, and if you want to join, just click join. I'd love to have you a part of that. We got some good stuff going on in there, great community of coaches, and you get some great interaction as well, that's what I love about the Facebook groups. Also, if you're interested, I have a guide for you. It's called the Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. It's actually an audio download and PDF resource guide. So it's called the Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. If you're interested in getting that, you can go right to my website, sellingcoaching.com, on the homepage, or you could be real fancy and you can text the word selling coaching to the number 44222. So I love doing that. It's cool when that happens. But it's all automated. So if you text the word selling coaching, no space, just one word, selling coaching, to the number 44222, just follow from there, and you'll get that ultimate guide and the PDF resource, the startup guide for new coaches. So that's kind of all the housekeeping stuff, and let's get into some meat here, and setting up your first Speak Live event. And I will say this, and I've done some other calls on the value of getting clients and from speaking engagements and live events. And after doing live events, and when I refer to a live event, this is a live event that I'm doing right now on the phone. Obviously I can record it, but it's a live event. So there's virtual and then there's online. So for the sake of conversation today, I'm going to just do a live event where you're setting it up in person, because there's more logistics involved on a live event in person. Online, I mean, there's still logistics, but it's like, hey, like I'm using freeconferencecall.com, right? You could sign up for a free account, you get a number and a passcode, and then you can create an event on, like I did, in a Facebook group or your Facebook page, and then promote it from there, and people call in and there's your live event. So there's not a lot of logistics involved there at all. But in a live event, there's definitely a lot more logistics. And if you can get people in a live setting and you're face-to-face, I would definitely say from doing both of those, it's definitely a lot more effective in terms of on the back end getting clients. Doesn't mean you can't get clients from doing these, like a call like this or live events virtually. I do it and it works for me. But there's nothing better than a live face-to-face event. So if it's something you're considering, let's kind of go into some of the details of it. And I don't want to get bogged down in too many details, but I want to give you some of the highlights and the biggest tips that I've learned along the way. But more importantly, as we start off, anyone that I've ever worked with, when I do one-on-one mentor coaching with them, and we're at the phase of our work together where we're helping them get out there and create a presence and be in front of people, like with events. The biggest challenge that they have is just the whole apprehension of a live event, just like, what am I going to talk about? Who am I? All the self-doubt, the self-limiting beliefs, the self-fears that they have, and like, what do I have to talk about? Who's going to want to listen to me? Who's going to want to pay or come even for free? All those limiting beliefs. And the biggest thing about it is you're never going to know until you do it. And so what I've found, and I can work with people as well, and I help them with this, and what I've done myself is the best way to set up a live event. I'll give you this strategy because I found this to be the most effective, is to actually plan the event, meaning you've got to find, obviously, you got to pick a time, you got to pick a date, and you got to pick a location. And so in terms of live events, I'm talking about a live event here where you're going to host it. You'll hear me talk in other calls and things that I've done where, probably the best way to do a live event is if you can have someone who's going to host you that has people that they want you to speak to. That's the best way to do it because, if you're going to go speak to a bunch of realtors, or you're going to go speak to at a Chamber of Commerce event or at an event for a company or whatever it may be, the space is taken care of, you work the date and the time out with the people, and then you show up and then there's people in the seats. That's by far the best way to do an event. However, you might not have contacts, you might not have avenues for that. So I'll go into, like, this is you setting up your own event, where you're doing basically all the work. And I will say this, and this is not to discourage you, but rather just give you the reality, is that doing your own event, like a live event, is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And where the work is probably not where you'd think it'd be, but where the work is putting people in the seats. And that's really the most challenging aspect, is getting people to show up for a live event. So with that in mind, let's just go through some of the logistics. In the strategy that I say is that because there's a lot of fears involved, there's a lot of those limiting beliefs, and what do I talk about and all that good stuff. The best way I found to do that is you've got to find a place, you got to pick a date, you got to pick a time. And when I talk about a place, let me go into some ideas for that. Especially as we're starting off, you want to be as friendly to your wallet as possible, not because you don't want to spend money. I have always encouraged people to, when it's time to invest money in your business, invest money in your business. But don't just spend it to spend it. With that being said, sure, you can go rent a hotel room or something like that. But right away, I wouldn't want you to spend $100, $200, $300 on a room. Even $50 on a room, that's a little better. If you can get it below $50, for something like that, and if it's a nice space, then yeah, go for it, and do it upright. And I've done that before, and I've done it successful. So I wouldn't say don't do that, but I don't want you breaking the bank, especially on your first event. There's enough to worry about. And then in addition to that, spending a lot of money on a room. So there are a lot of places you can exhaust first before you go spend hundreds of dollars on a room. And, just real simply, churches, sometimes in the church basement, there's some space. Schools, obviously schools have classrooms, so, everyone knows whether you have especially if you have a child, but if you don't, someone who has a child. So you have access to, hey, what's their school like? Where is it located? Could you connect me with the principal, the teacher? You know what I mean? After school, kids are out of school. Who's in the school? You know what I mean? So if you have some connections that way, you might find a viable space, and classroom's a classroom, Obviously, if it's, lower grade levels, the chairs are going to be kind of tiny. So just consider that. But also most schools will have like a gymnasium or a cafeteria where they have, fold chairs or bleachers even. That's a great option. I've done some stuff with schools before too. With that being said, there's daycares, there's health clubs. I was in the health and fitness industry before that, so maybe that's why I see that as a viable source. But then again, health clubs, they have group fitness spaces. They've got, I've done little seminars like in just blocked out spaces where they had some, just group classes when they didn't have those. And yeah, it was loud, and yeah, there's a bunch of people in the gym, but it was a space, and part of it was I was able to, market to the people within the health club as well, to get them to come to the event, and it was kind of a win-win. I was able to invite some of my people, and I got some people from the actual health club itself to attend the event. So just trying to give you ideas. Additionally, probably one of the best ideas are, just business spaces, offices, like office buildings or complexes where, there's a big real estate space where, there's 5, 6, 10, whatever offices in that one area. Office parks, I think they might call them. And so it's obviously if you have a connection to somebody and whether it's an employee or a friend or a friend of a friend that works there or knows anybody for that matter, that's the best way to work into, finding spaces. But with offices or even companies, like large companies, they have a lot of meeting rooms or meeting spaces that they're not using it a lot of times during the day. So if you can, through some connections or even just a cold walking in, and just being like, hey, and this is the language, I'm launching my seminar and coaching company, or I just started my seminar and coaching company, or I'm in the beginning phases of my seminar and coaching company, and I'm looking to create some seminars. And I'm looking to do a few events, and honestly, I'm looking for some office space. I'm looking for some space where I can host them. I don't have really a big budget, or you can say honestly, I really don't have much, if any, of a budget right now. And I'm just wondering if you might have some office space that you might be willing to, lend to me on a, whatever, on a monthly basis or on a kind of as needed basis. Not every day or every week, but maybe you want to do 1 or 2 events a month. Even just to get started. Is that something you'd consider, or who might I talk to? And you know what? Even some of the companies that I work for, I have some local clients of some companies, and one's a pretty big company. It's about a $50-60 million business. They've got 400 employees. It's huge space. They've got so many meeting rooms. And I work with the CEO and some of those people, and I know that if someone came in there and with that type of an approach, and they seem to be a good person, I'd be shocked if this person didn't say like, yeah, let's look into it, or let's get you set up. And even the other guy that I know that I'm working with I've been with them for 5 years now, and you know what? These are things that people are willing to do. And again, it's all in the right approach. And that's why I'm trying to give you an approach as well, because with an approach that's just authentic, and it's like, hey, I'm launching this, or I've been starting this off, and I'm looking to do some seminars, and quite honestly, I don't have much, if any, of a budget, and I'm looking for some meeting space. Would you be open to talking about that? Or do you think you might have some space that I might be able to use, every now and then to have that? And hey, if you find 2 or 3 places like that, again, you want it to be in a decent location, something that has plenty of parking. You have to worry about that. So there's just some things to consider. Obviously, depending on the business or the place, if it's too hard to find, or if it's a manufacturing type place and it's dirty, or those are things that you want, to consider. But again, office spaces, office parks, those are great. And the reason why office parks are awesome, meaning real estate that has a bunch of different office spaces or businesses around there, is if you're hosting an event there, obviously the ideal place to market would be and invite people would be the actual employees and owners of the offices around there. And ideally, if they have customers, if it's that type of a business where customers come in and out, if you are hosting it there, you can connect with the other business owners. Odds are the person who's letting you use their space might or would have some connections with some other of the business owners, because typically if you have a business in an area, you know some other business owners or business people around you, so you can ask if you can get connected to them. Would you mind introducing me? And then seeing who's willing to help. Like really, that's like the best thing you can do is ask for help with that. And those are some good ideas there that I've done and worked for me. So it's not theory. Like, these are things obviously that I've done. I've also done stuff at Chamber of Commerce, things that I've been a member of, one that I've been a member of, and even one that I wasn't a member of. I just asked them, like, they had a great meeting room, and I'm like, you're not using that. Would you be open to having me use that for something? And they did that for me. And so, or even just like, at a low cost, for $25 or something like that, or $50. Would you be open to that? Because they have some nice meeting spaces, and it can't hurt to ask. So in terms of location, starting off, that's probably what the first thing you got to do is, okay, can you secure a location? So if I were to, bullet point it and say, find a location, find a spot that you could use, even if it's just for one time, but ideally on kind of somewhat of a recurring basis. Because you want to start setting up events. You don't want to just set up one event and then have the event and then be like, whew, all right, that was a big epic, my first event, and then be done. It's like you want to kind of set it up and then have another event planned for a couple weeks later or the next month, depending on your schedule, holidays, things like that. So once you find a location, and even from those ideas there, you can start making a list of people and contacts. And I would guarantee if you were really working that for even 2, 3, 4 days, people getting back to you, unless you connect with them the first time, that even within a few days, if not a day, you could secure a location, at least for your first event. In terms of timing, this is one thing people think about is like, okay, if I'm going to do my first event, okay, well, I'll do it like a month from now, or I'll do it like in 2 months from now. Like sometimes I work with some of my clients and they're like, okay, yeah, I want to set my first event up. And let's say it's October 1st right now. They're like, okay, yeah, I'll set it up for, January 1st. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. But how about like a couple weeks from now? All right. And they freak out on me. And the reason I say that, and I respect that, because that's where I would have been when, someone said that to me early on. But what I found after doing events, and you'll see this especially online with webinars and marketing for that, is unless it's a huge event like a convention or something that's really big, where the attendance is going to be in the hundreds or thousands or something like that, and there's multiple people involved and so forth and so on, unless it's in a big event like that, which this is not, right? Like, if you can get it that big, fantastic, but I'm just talking like, hey, can you just do your first event and have like 5 people in front of you, right? And I'm not thinking small, but rather just thinking, what's something manageable that's not going to freak you out into not being able to do anything and not doing your first event. That's where I'm going with this, the thought process. So with that being said, you don't need a lot of lead time because people don't decide until the last minute. They don't decide until, most of the time, within 24 hours of the event. Maybe 48, but definitely 24 hours of the event. So planning an event, months from now, or even, like months from now, it's just too long. And even there's no point in even marketing it until a couple weeks of the event. Yeah, you could throw some teasers out there and say, hey, coming next month, or blah, 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 we get this event. But most people don't decide until it's there, unless they really, really want to go. If you really, really want to go to something, as soon as you see it, you're like, oh my God, this is me. I'm signing up. I'm ready to go. That's a very small percent of the population. And most people are like, oh, that sounds interesting. And it might be more of like, hey, if nothing comes up, I'll go. So with that being said, if you were going to plan your first event, I would say, and again, this might be a little scary, but I would say plan it a few weeks out from now. Once you secure a location, you just got to pick a date and a time. And then I say, okay, what does a couple weeks out look? And pick that. And I'm going to tell you why. The strategy behind this is what I'm going into is, so now let's say, and I'll just do this. So what is today? Today's October 18th. So I'm going to go out literally a couple weeks in my calendar, 1 week, 2 week. And so 2 weeks from today is November 1st. So let's say I'm going to do like something towards the end of the week, like on a Thursday, Friday, or maybe even like a Saturday mid-morning or something like that. So that's just over 2 weeks. That would be a perfect time frame. It's all I need is the location, and then let's say I'm going to do a Saturday, mid-morning on November 5th. So that's just over 2 weeks from now, and let's say I'm going to do a 10 in the morning event. So now I've got the date, I've got the time, I've got the location. I've got the urgency because it's 2 weeks out, and I'm freaking out right now. Right? So I'm just playing into where people might be on this. So now with that being said, what that does is all I've got to do is I've got to come up with a topic. And obviously this can be the hardest thing is like, oh my God, what do I do for a topic? Now, what makes it easier is if you have found, let's say, your niche, your message. I like to say for one audience, one message for one audience. Or another way I've said it is, who you're helping with what specifically. So in other words, myself, I help coaches transition to a full-time business. So now what's going to happen is if I'm going to host a live event, I've got to figure out, well, where are these coaches? Now, in this case, I'm hosting a live event in person. So I've got to figure out like, okay, what's going to be the best avenue for this? Sometimes with specific niches that you're really dialed down, what that does is now I'm not just going to find a school or a business or office space, but rather I've got to go and find a place where these people hang out or these people gather. So I might go, like for instance, some people graduated from the school IPAC, right? I had gone there as well, and so I might find like, okay, well, I live in Massachusetts. There's an IPAC school location right in Massachusetts, so now I can go to the owner of that. and connect with him. I actually happen to know him, but if I didn't, I could connect with him and say, hey, listen, I'm looking to host an event. That would be an ideal location because there have been, I would imagine over time, a bunch of coaches who have gone there and gotten certified. So if you can see, that's going to be a much better location for me. And then in terms of how I can market is, I'm going to market and try and find specifically where those coaches hang out online and offline, and even trying to collaborate with maybe some people where maybe they've gone through the training. But if you're in a general niche and you don't really have, your audience with who you're helping with what, that's where you can find those general locations. So when it comes to picking a topic, what I'd suggest for you is just pick something that like you love, that you're confident about, that you love to talk on. That if someone said, if you were to just talk for 15, 20 minutes on something, or if someone engaged in a conversation with you on this topic, it's like you just feel like you could go off, forever on. And odds are it's probably just general personal development. It might be mindset or the power of choice, or, you know what I mean? Or raising your energy levels, or, perspective, or anything like that. Like, look to things that you've gone through and overcome. Look at some experiences that you've had, if you've gone to a coaching school, or some books you've read, or some personal development that you've done, that just like some concepts or some themes in there that you just are really attracted to and that you're really passionate about. That's where I would have you go for your first event if I were guiding you and mentoring you. And then don't even worry if like the title's good or not. And this is where, oh, well, I'm not a marketer and blah, blah, blah. It's like at the end of the day, it's like, just pick a title, just find something. It's like the power of choice and how it helps you in your life. I mean, is that a great title? It's whatever. It's a title, And so just pick a title. And I would say if you're thinking about it, just be as literal as possible. Literal, meaning just tell them, what you're going to be talking about. And if it's general, it's like, hey, the power of choice and how it can help you in your life. Gaining new perspectives. The power of changing your perspective. Are you in a place in your life where everything seems down or wrong or not right? Well, come learn, just even some simple questions you can ask yourself that can turn everything around with a question. Learn how to use the power of coaching and asking yourself questions, where just by asking yourself the questions turns things around. This isn't super polished in how I'm delivering it right now, but this is the general idea. Use some coaching concepts. I remember starting off doing things. My very first seminar was on SMART goals. It was on just being specific and making it measurable. And it was like, that's all I did, but it worked and it got me out there. I've done events when I worked with State Farm Insurance, and I did a lot of stuff with them in my coaching business. I worked with State Farm agents, and I did events on coaching, but I just paralleled it to communication. And how do you communicate? Instead of managing and bossing your people around, how do you become more of a coach? How to ask questions, open-ended questions, how to listen at different levels. I used some coaching concepts that I had used and was mastering within my coaching business as a coach, and I taught these people how to do some of those things because I was passionate about asking questions and listening. And I taught those things, and these are, high income earning State Farm agents who are running a business. And so I'm just trying to give you different ideas. But what you got to do is, once you get the date, location, and time, you got to pick a topic, and you just got to pick it, just write a few blurbs about it. And then what you got to do is you got to market it. And most people, what I find is, especially when I'm mentoring people, is they want to plan out what they want to talk about. They want to plan out the event in terms of the content first. It's not a mistake, but for the sake of conversation, I'll say that's the biggest mistake you could make, because what happens is you paralyze yourself in trying to figure out what you're going to say. Meanwhile, you're not planning the event. You're not inviting people to it. There's no urgency because no one's coming because the event isn't set up yet. Therefore, you never quite figure out what to say. And then, November 1st goes by, and then it's the next year, November 1st, and you're still thinking about setting up your first event. And I'm telling you, that's what's most likely going to happen. And if I'm wrong, then fantastic. Then you can do it. However, when you do it this way, what happens is you plan out the topic, you've got everything set up. Now, I make a little flyer, and I get it out there. And what I do is I pound the pavement. So for the next week, So if I'm setting this event up in, just over 2 weeks from now or 2 weeks from now, I'm going to get out there with these flyers and I'm going to go to office spaces around where this is. And hey, would you mind putting this up? I'm having a seminar here next, in a couple weeks on November 1st. That's on Saturday. Would you be interested in coming? Who do you know that might be interested in a topic like this? Would you be open to passing this out to your employees? Who else might you know that you could connect me with that would be interested in helping me spread the word? You've got to become, I'll say the election's around right now. And yesterday someone rang my doorbell for, a local congresswoman or whatever. And it was, I don't know, like this teenage girl passing out flyers and making awareness of this person. And I might even end up voting for this person only because I don't know of anybody else. And this person took the time to do that and give me a little brochure and tell me a little bit about this candidate. And I'm like, wow, maybe I'll vote for them, right? So you never know. But the point is you've got to be a spokesperson for this event and invite. And you've got to confirm, meaning you've got to get people going to this event. You've got to get people committed to this event. In terms of charging for the event, what I'd recommend is for your first event, do a complimentary event. Do it no more than an hour. I would plan an hour, especially if you're getting people to come. Anything shorter than that, it can work on a phone call or something like that. Or if you're going into a company for a lunchtime thing, you could do things that are shorter. But you could do an hour event, and you could do a complimentary hour event for people, especially if someone's letting you use their space free of charge. I wouldn't charge for the event on top of that. If you do want to charge for it, I'm not going to discourage you from that. But what happens is if you're letting them borrow that, say, hey, listen, I'm going to charge a $15 cover for this. I'm more than happy to give you 100% of that or whatever you want to work out with them. But just to make it simple, especially if someone's letting you use their space, just do a complimentary event. It just makes everything a whole lot easier. But so you confirm the people for the event, and by confirming people, meaning when you want to get answers from people, or you're interested in this event, and you've got to promote it. And so getting it out there, you can promote it obviously face-to-face. So local businesses, local homes even. Get some friends, get your kids, get friends' kids. And get out there, make some flyers and hand them out. Put them in mailboxes. I don't know if that's illegal or not, but you know what I mean? But the point is spreading that word. Get on social media. And create an event on your Facebook page and get on your Facebook profile. Another thing is make a list. Get on a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet and start with your top 10. But then you can expand from there. But who are the top 10 people that I want to invite to this event? Who would be the top 5 people that would come no matter what? My best friend, my mom, my whatever. Who are the people that are kind of like the fillers, so to speak, that they're going to show up no matter what so that you can actually have the event. And the reason why I'm really going hardcore on getting people to commit and even getting those fillers, so to speak, that can benefit from it and asking them, hey, could you bring a friend type of thing, is once you've got people committed, now it's real. And this is the whole crux of everything I'm talking about. It comes right here. Is once now someone says, yes, I'm coming to the event. You can count on me being there. And they're not fluffing you. They're not, just afraid to say no. So they're maybe, yeah, sure, I think I might make it. That person's not coming. When you get the person who says, you know what, I will absolutely be there. And you look them in the eyes or you're on the phone and say, listen, I just want to know, are you planning on being there? It's my first live event. Or even say, I'm putting a lot of work into this, and if you say you want to be there, I really would love you to come, but if you really can't make it, I would just rather have you be honest with me. And if they, you know what, Jeff, I will be there, great. And you get a handful of people, and now you're committed. And that commitment right there drives you forward to figure out what you're going to talk about, right? And this is, like I said, this is the whole kind of the crux of this strategy is when you've got that commitment, now it's like the time's going to get closer and closer. That Saturday is going to get closer and closer. And I'm going to freak out and whatever else I'm going to go through in that amount of time, and my anxiety or a panic attack or who knows what. But here's what I'm going to say. Who cares? Because at some point, you're going to have to sit your butt down and figure it out. And you know what? When you have that type of stimulus, you always figure it out. I've very rarely, if ever, I can't remember anybody that I've, in my hundreds of people that I've worked with over the years, and even personal training clients or whatever, that have that type of stimulus where they've gotten people coming to, an event like that, and they just were like, the day before going like, I can't figure out what to talk about, I'm canceling the event. And maybe you would. I'm not saying there's no one out there that wouldn't do that. However, if you go through the trouble of inviting and really locking down these people and asking for their commitment to show up, and you put that out there, it's going to be really hard for you to cancel if you at all care about your reputation or anything like that. So that's why I'm asking you to do that. That's the thing that locks you into being able to figure it out, what you're going to talk about. And then whatever it is, you're never going to feel prepared enough. That's the reality of it. You're never going to feel prepared enough for your first seminar until you do it. And then you're going to go from there. And whether it's bad or good or everywhere in between, it doesn't matter. You've just got to be able to do that first seminar. And that's the simple strategy that I'll give you today in terms of how to really set that up. There's a lot of other logistics in going from there. But the biggest thing is I've found, the reason I took this direction with the call today is because what I found is most people will never set up their first event. And it's because of the paralysis of, what do I talk about, and the negative beliefs or limiting beliefs in terms of what they feel that they can't deliver value and so forth and so on, or they can't get anyone, or who's going to come. And so by taking this avenue, what's happening is you're taking care of all the major components in terms of location, date, time, and then figuring out what to talk about. And then in terms of the only thing you got to figure out from there is kind of the actual, like the logistics of the event. And when you figure out what you're going to talk about, you'll know with your meeting space, or do you have access to a PowerPoint? Do they have a projector? Unless you have one already. Once you know the logistics of the meeting room and the meeting space, if they don't have a projector that you can use and you don't have one yourself, and okay, well, I'm not going to use PowerPoint. Okay, so what am I going to use? Am I going to use notes? Or am I just going to kind of have it all in my head or have it bullet pointed? Whatever the case may be, is there a whiteboard on there? Am I going to bring like a little flip, big oversized, Post-it notes that I kind of have my bullet points pre-written out and I kind of flip through that as I go through the seminar? If at that point you can plan your strategy of delivery. And, there's no wrong way of doing it. It's just what's going to be the most effective for you so you can kind of stay on topic and deliver what you want to deliver and interact with the people in that way. So, like I said, there are a lot of other logistics to it. But what I found is if you can get to that point, anything else from there, you'll figure out. And then what I'd say is once you've done that first event, and you figured out some of those things, you're going to be at least a little bit more at ease about doing it because it's done. So from there, now that's when, like when I work with my mentoring clients, that's when we can say, okay, you did your first event and you've done through all that piece. Now you probably have a meeting space that you can utilize. You've got at least one topic. Now you can just refine that same topic and make it improve upon it instead of just why do something brand new, another topic, just improve upon it. So you can tweak that a little bit. And then you can think about other things in terms of, maybe you can have a giveaway afterwards, how to contact people's information, how you can follow up with people afterwards better, to see where you can find the clients out of it. And those are logistics that obviously I can't go over now, but those are some things that you can start worrying about and improving upon after you do your first event and as you get better with them and more comfortable with them. So I hope at least this was a great start to really figuring out that strategy to get you to do it. And the reason why, like I said, I took that direction is because so many people just struggle with that piece.